Hello and good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Westborough Board of Selectmen. It is Tuesday, October 6th, and this meeting is being held remotely. Hello, and I will open the meeting with a reading of the governor's orders. We'll review the agenda and then we'll get started with our meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law C-30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. With this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner: through Westborough TV, streaming live, or through your cable, channel 192 on Charter, 28 on Verizon. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via these technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And now our agenda. So we have approval of meeting minutes as item number 1. Item number 2 at 5:05, discussion vote, request to sign the warrant for the 2020 state election. Item 3 at 5:10, discussion vote to set the date of the fall town meeting. Item 4, discussion vote, town meeting warrant articles, and there are several sections specifically, and guests will have at our meeting tonight to speak to those items. Item number 5, around 6:30, we'll have a discussion vote, request to set fees and execute agreement with ChargePoint for the town's EV charging stations. Item number 6, a presentation by the Affordable Housing Working Group. Item number 7, discussion vote, affordable housing warrant articles, also by the being presented by the Affordable Housing Working Group. Around 7:10, we'll have a discussion vote to amend policy on training requirements for liquor license holders and employees. At 7:15, we'll have the town manager's report, followed by issues and correspondence of the selectmen, and we will have an executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease of real estate at 28 Indian Pond Road. All right. So with that, and just for the public that, so whomever may be watching, you may be only seeing 2 selectmen at the moment on video. We do have Selectman Hashmi is also on. He's joining us by phone, and we may be joined by other selectmen, but just in case you're wondering if we had a quorum, we do. Okay, so our first item before us is approval of the September 8, 2020 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move we accept the minutes from our September 8th, 2020 meeting as presented.
Second?
I'll second that. Hello?
Yep. Was that a second, Syed?
Yes, did you hear me?
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, seeing, hearing none. Roll call vote, please. Selectman Hashmi?
Yes.
Selectman Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yes.
And Selectman Marshall, yes. That's 3-0-0, 3 being present. And we'll move to our next agenda item. I see we've been joined by our town clerk, who is now taking up residence in the first floor of the town hall. Hi, Wendy. Great to see you.
Shelby, as a reminder, I'm muting myself and will not participate in this discussion. Sheila, if you could document that for the record, please.
Thank you, Syed. Thanks for that reminder. And welcome, Ian, to the meeting. Great to see you.
Thank you. Sorry, we're a few minutes late.
No worries. We're just moving on to our second agenda item. So I'll open it up to Wendy.
I'm just here to ask you to sign the warrant for the state election. That'll be on November 3rd.
Okay, and does that have to be notarized, Wendy?
Only by me. I have to have a constable post it, and all of you, well, at least 3 of you need to sign it.
Okay.
So I'll have it in the office and you can come in.
Okay.
It's convenient. Well, if you can do it this week, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure we can. Okay,
So-
do I have a motion?
I move to approve and sign the warrant for the 2020 state election.
And I second that, Selectman Johnson.
All right, great. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Selectman Johnson,
Johnson, yes.
Selectman Edinburgh,
Edinburgh, yes.
and Selectman Marshall, yes. And Selectman Hashmi already said he was abstaining, so that's 3-0-1 on the vote. Okay. Thank you very much, Wendy.
Hey, thank you.
And so Wendy, just into the town clerk's office, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to get in tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Keep up the great work. I know you're working hard, the whole team. And speaking of things to vote on, we're moving to our next discussion, which is setting the date of fall town meeting. Our town manager.
Yes, so initially we had talked about a November 9th date for a fall town meeting, which is a Saturday. We talked about starting it at 9 o'clock in the morning, hoping that we would complete the warrant in one day. Initially, we heard from the town clerk's office that that date was difficult for them based on deadlines set by the election. And so we moved it to the 14th and then realized that we were actually conflicting with Diwali. So we do need to set a new date. We have since heard from the town clerk who's on the call that they have actually changed some of those deadlines. And so the November 7th date would now work for her in her office. Or we have the option of doing it on a weeknight, which would be November 9th. And so all of these dates have been mentioned to the school department. And so they're just waiting for your decision.
Okay, do I have a motion for purpose of discussion?
Okay, I can make that motion. So I move pursuant to the authority granted under Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 9, and the town's bylaws to hold the fall special town meeting on November 7, 2020 at 9 a.m. at the Westborough High School, 90 West Main Street, and to post notice of the same.
And I'll second that, Selectman Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion by the board.
And I think similar to what we had when we talked initially on November 14th, doing it on a Saturday starting at 9 a.m. and going, I think with what's happening still with COVID and not knowing where we'll be in a month from now, that I like that. It's not interfering with some of the work being done in the schools to continue their programs, although I know they've agreed that they can do that. I think this would be better for them, for us to do it on a Saturday. And I think it's better for the community to allow folks to come out, during the day as well. So I think if it's okay with the town clerk and the town moderator, for me, November 7th at 9 a.m. sounds like the right time.
And we do have our
It's okay.
town moderator on. So John, do you want to weigh in?
No, it's okay with me. I know that you're not actually finalizing the warrant and everything, but I will just throw out the reminder that the date in place is fine. But one of the things that I'll put my camera on so everybody can see my messy desk. The date is fine, but as we move forward with the warrant, given the larger than expected turnout last week, I think we just want to consider to make sure to see if we think we need 2 or 3 rooms and all that. But I do think doing it in a single day where people can come and go. But we will have to think about how many people we expect to show up so we can work with the schools to plan accordingly.
Alan or Syed, any comments?
No?
I agree with what Ian has said, that doing it on a Saturday, less interference with the cleaning protocols for the school, even though they're obviously willing to do it. We appreciate that very much. If it works, as it works for our town moderator, and it's fine with the town clerk and her team doing it, in one day. During the day, I think makes it easier for everyone, and I'm very happy with the 7th. That would work.
I'll echo those thoughts. And also, I think having it starting at 9 a.m., as John already indicated, allows folks to come and go. Obviously, we always want them to stay the entire time, but I think it allows for folks to come and plan on it being a day, and it allows for the check-in staff also to sort of deal with kind of, I think, an initial influx, and then as people come and go, it's a lighter load than maybe kind of crushing everything into a shorter meeting in the evening, or 2 evenings, I should say. Yes, Ian.
Yeah, just one thing I forgot to say is that we know we've gotten, when we do the night one, sometimes we've gotten concerns from, certain residents that whether it's driving at night or the late night time frame, all of that again, echoing what I think, Shelby, you just said too, but doing it on that Saturday, doing it in daylight hours, starting at 9 a.m., hopefully we can complete it in daylight hours. But that I think just allows us for broader participation, which is what we want. And we don't want to exclude anybody because of certain things. I think this, to me, provides us with, the chance to get the best representation of folks.
Yep. Yeah, and just one more. I know folks have, I've heard from folks saying, let's hold this meeting outside. I know we've talked about that, but I think the folks need to understand that the logistics and the potential for bad weather, particularly as it is getting colder, we're kind of enjoying some nice weather now, but a month from now, it could be a cold day to be sitting outside. So I think we're taking all the necessary precautions. We'll have good ventilation for those who have attended the most recent special town meeting and then the spring town meeting. I think we've done a great job keeping it safe and healthy for everyone. So, all right, with that, I think we've probably discussed this to the extent we need to. I'll call for a roll call vote. Selectman Hashmi.
Yes.
Selectman Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
Selectman Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, yes.
And Selectman Marshall, yes. That's 4004 being present. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving rapidly along into our next agenda item. We have the fall town meeting warrant. So we have, for the public's benefit, we've reviewed the warrant at our previous meeting. There were a couple items that we had flagged as a board that we wanted some further discussion about. So we've invited our department heads back today to talk about those articles. And I do want to just make a note that we had invited the finance committee to attend this meeting. They were really appreciative of being included, but they are holding their own meeting that was already previously scheduled to cover some of the same topics. So they may be watching tonight and listening in. I hope they are. But I did want to let the board know that they were invited and again, really appreciative of the opportunity to work with us and kind of hear everything at the same time. So with that, Christy, I'll turn it over to you.
So the board had asked that we have the Department of Public Works on this meeting, as well as the police department, and to talk about some of the articles that are on the fall town meeting warrant. None of the articles are new. They're all articles that were previously on the annual town meeting warrant, though some of them have been adjusted. And so the DPW director is on to talk about to answer any questions that you have on the capital projects that are on the warrant. You'll note that on the most recent one that came out today, we actually removed one of the capital requests, which was the renewable energy study, because he did receive a grant to get that project started. And so you can certainly ask him questions about that. He'll also can talk about the borrowing article related to the water project. And then as you'll remember in that second article with the budget adjustments, we're recommending that we fund the vacant labor position for half the year. So I'll let Chris present on that.
So why don't we just take the warrant sort of in order for the items that Chris would be speaking to, unless Chris, do you have a presentation you've prepared, or you're just here generally to?
I can go anyway, but I do have one slide to just kind of quickly summarize everything, but it's up to you guys.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me pop it up real quick.
Yep, sounds good.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yep, we can.
Okay, so I'll be brief, 2 minutes or less. But as you all know, this process started a year ago. And the bottom line for us is that everything that's in the warrant as listed, we're still confident in and wish to push forward. I mean, we've had obviously a year to look back on it and potentially make refinements since we didn't execute on the timeline we originally anticipated, but we're comfortable as it is. So at the top of the slide, those goals relate to the articles that are in the warrant, and that's what we published in the budget document that was approved earlier this year. So each one of those bullets there corresponds to, an objective we have to, continue to make things better for the town and for the department. In the center of the slide, it says actions to offset. I just think it's important for you and anybody that's watching to know that while we are in many cases asking for a lot of money to, facilitate the work we do, we look for every opportunity we can to, get money back to the town or have someone else pay the bill. And so, we've conducted some auctions to get rid of surplus equipment. That's a team effort there. So some of that money, Pat Purcell sold a boat and brought in a good chunk of money for that. But the point is there's money going back to the town. And then several grants that we've received over the last 6 months or so to not necessarily offset an article, although one of them does, but still allows us to do work that would need to be done one way or the other, and now someone else is going to pay for it. So the bottom part of the slide refers to our articles. Just a quick summary. So 4 vehicles. We do have a lot of equipment, and as we discussed way back in January, we reviewed each one of these vehicles specifically. We need them. We need to replace some equipment that's just aged and in some cases just not safe to put out on the road. So we need those vehicles. We are looking at opportunities to rent and potentially buy used equipment. But regardless of that avenue, we still need to purchase these 4 vehicles. The data collection tools, those are the tablets referenced in that top goal up there about optimizing use of GIS. So besides the asset management aspect of it and I think the efficiency of it, we're also mandated by a couple of our permits regarding stormwater and sewer to use GIS as a mechanism for tracking our infrastructure. And so this will help us do that. And then I think everybody's familiar with the not standard, but required pump station improvements. So the grinder and the generator, that remains valid. As Christy mentioned, the renewable energy study, we pulled that out because we now have a grant we just got last week. We've been waiting on. And to be honest, that was always the intent. If we didn't need to spend, even if this had been approved back in June or whenever it was March or whenever it would have happened, if we were able to pursue grant money, we would have. And in this case, it worked out for us. And then the last thing there is the water main that we need to replace. And that's part of a program we need to do continuously to update aged infrastructure. And that's just kind of routine in my eyes for any town. And this project will help us do that. The particular aspect of that project is that it's along Flanders Road, which is where potentially the gas line could go. And I know that's still being discussed, but our intent is to do our work first, so we're not tearing up the road ourselves after someone else has torn it up. We can do that kind of in the opposite way, and then potentially, get some assistance in cleaning up that road after the gas line goes in, if that in fact happens. So that's the kind of the driver for that specific location, in addition to just the quality of the water main there. So that is the summary. I'll stop sharing, but I just wanted to kind of remind everybody what we had and that in my eyes, it's all still very valid.
Chris, I was just going to say, before you take that slide down, could you put that back up? Thanks.
Is it still there?
Not yet.
No, it's not on my screen. So, all right.
Okay.
All right, let me put it back up.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, should see it now.
Yep, there we go. So 2 questions, well, 3 actually. So, and others may be wondering, so the renewable energy grant, the original article, which was, just for anyone following along at home, was 3H, I'm sorry, 6H, H is in Harry, was for $30,000. So that's been wholly funded by the grant?
No, the grant was 12,500.
Okay.
The idea behind that 30,000 was that we could do some sort of assessment, and then if we identified a project that we wanted to potentially move forward, we would have some ability to potentially move that forward to design or some other aspect, but essentially do some more investigation. And I think with this grant, we could get what we need and then potentially pursue another grant for more investigation, or if needed, come back to the town in the future for funds. But I think the grant's sufficient to get us at least started.
Okay.
So,
And I don't recall, is there a matching component for the town?
There's no matching requirement.
Okay. I presume that was the case. And just for the public's benefit and my own, to be honest, where you have grants there, you have a bunch of acronyms just for the everyone's benefit. Could you kind of spell out what those are, please?
Yep. So VW, that's Volkswagen. That was two 1-ton trucks that was initiated by Sustainable Westborough. That's pretty old. That's from last year. But it was to purchase fuel-efficient vehicles or update, in our case, vehicles. The shared streets, that was a COVID-related offering this past summer, had a quick turnaround. So we had $79,000 there to turn some dysfunctional sidewalk ramps into properly installed ADA ramps, and that's happening on West Street. The MITA is a Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Grant, and that's the $12,000 for the energy study. And then DER is the Department of Ecological Resources, and that was a $41,000 grant related to a culvert on Bowman Lane that needs to be replaced. And so that funding will allow us to do the analysis, which is just the first step to discover, what needs to be done to fix that culvert.
Okay. All right. I may have some other questions, but thank you for the slide. I think it gives all of us a great perspective, and appreciate you taking us back in time to some of the offsets as well. I think those are important that we all understand those. So I'll open up to the board for questions for Chris.
Wait, Chris, Shelby, it's Sayed.
Go ahead, Syed. Yep.
So Chris, thank you. Can you, granted this, we are engaged, I guess, in a discussion with Eversource about Flanders Road, right? My question is, hopefully we won't get a pipeline, but I'm just asking, so does this repair work need to happen this year or in the near future? Because what I don't want is we do this repair, we disrupt the neighborhood, and then we disrupt the neighborhood again. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yes. So
I'm just wondering, is it possible for us to wait till the Eversource, or it's too late and it's too much? I'm just trying to get a sense. I just don't want to. It's a really tiny road. There's not a lot of passage. I just want to make sure that the lives of the residents are disrupted as little as possible.
Right. So in a perfect world, we would do it all at the same time, but that that's not, I mean, it's not physically possible based on we'd have to shut like the road down entirely. And so we can't do them together. And so we have to sequence them. And from our perspective, it makes sense to do our work first. As you said, potentially it may not even come down this section of road, and that would be a benefit in terms of the disruption to the road. But I honestly don't know of any way to mitigate the two different projects that need to happen. This one for water, and our water study that was completed earlier this year, or published earlier this year, this was the #1 recommendation for a water main section that needs to be replaced based on the type of pipe that exists there and the number of breaks we had. And so
Okay.
I know that's not a perfect answer, but that's
no, I understand.
That's what it is.
And just as a follow-on, so after you do this repair, right? And again, just worst case scenario, if they do put in a pipe, how will we? Is the onus on them to protect?
Gas company to, they will pay for the work they do, the trench they dig, but I think potentially we have the ability to get them to do a bit more to make the road, entirely make it whole again and not have, all these different cuts and patches across the road. But that's a discussion that would have to happen down the road with the gas company.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Hyatt. Anyone else? Questions?
Just a quick question about the addition of the laborer position related to Article 2. That is consistent with the staffing plan, correct?
It's not a new position, so it's filling what's been a vacant position.
Oh, okay.
But the staffing plan does recommend in the future hiring additional people. And so I think that just validates the fact that we need to fill this position now.
Okay, so this is a position we left vacant for the time being that we need to fill. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. If there are no other questions for Chris, we'll thank him for attending. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, hold on, just one. Toby, I think.
One more.
No, not. This is not a comment. This is an editorial remark, and I think this is something that Chris mentioned. I recognize that times are tight for our residents, but these are, essential work for our town. I think Chris mentioned the work around Flanders Road. It's a critical infrastructure need that has been identified as a critical need. So this stuff is not. Is us being careful with your money and trying to use it appropriately and not and using it for essential things. I recognize these are tight times, but these things cannot be delayed. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, Syed, I think you make a great point that, it takes money to maintain infrastructure. It takes money to plow the streets, and, we could go down the list. So I think the town has demonstrated across many, many departments, every department, through the budget presentation of, how to trim back the budget when it was needed and to still continue to hold that line, but yet to not lose ground on, kind of the assets that we already have in the services that the town provides. So great. All right, Chris, you're officially off the hook.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. All right, fantastic. Great. And we have with us Chief Laurie from the police. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I am here with my illustrious deputy chief. So in the spirit of highlighting my talented staff, I will lead off and he will clean up for us tonight with the cruiser warrant article. I want to start by saying that obviously I've presented several times over the FY21 budget and we talk about Westborough and location, location, location. And we have people coming. We're a growing community in many ways. So I'm going to say to you, staffing study, staffing study, staffing study. To remind the public that we did have a study which suggested we implement 7 people immediately just to deal with the call volume. And we haven't done that yet. COVID hit, and we put off putting those 3 people on in October. Now I'm asking you for 1. So why am I asking? Why is it so necessary? 1, because you're right, I don't need 1, I need 10. The reason why I really feel it's imperative that we move forward is I'm going to share with you some data that is apples to apples. And then I'm going to also give you some data as it relates to COVID. And it's been very interesting to be a police chief and be a police officer in these trying times. COVID's been difficult. We have to quarantine officers. We have issues that we have to deal with the public to keep us safe. But I just wanted to go back and just share basically our offense listings. So I'm looking at 8 pages of crimes that have been, or issues that have been, anything from assault and battery, kidnapping, sex crimes, etc. So just to show you that in 2018, in January, we had 91 offenses, and in February, 87 offenses. In 2019, during January and February, before COVID, we had 107 offenses in January, 72 in February. And in 2020, we had 168 in January and 189 in February. We're busy. These are a lot, in many cases, calls for service. So then I wanted to get into just some statistical data from incident reports. In 2018 till today, we had 1,281 incident reports and 105 arrests. In 2019, we had 1,600 incident reports and 107 arrests. In 2020, we had 1,708 incident reports and 177 arrests, with several months, to go. We're doing everything in our power right now not to arrest people because of COVID, trying to keep our officers safe. We're trying to summons whenever possible. These are where we're really mandated warrants, domestics, and that sort of thing. I wanted to also talk about COVID. What is your police department dealing with COVID? Carol Presley from Youth and Family Services asked us for some data in regards to our mental health calls for a grant she's writing and overdoses. So in 2019, from March 22nd to September 22nd, we had 116 behavioral health emergencies and 50 overdoses. In 2020, during that same time period, from March 22nd through September 22nd, we had 123 behavioral health emergencies and 93 overdoses. You're talking almost twice the number of overdoses. Your officers are the ones that are in their cruisers, getting there first as first responders and supplying Narcan to those that are in crisis. And I say to you, we need police officers on the road to get that done. And we're still running certain shifts extremely short. The station's unmanned. Those 3 positions that originally would have come in October, I was going to try, like I said to you, and it wasn't going to be 100%, to try to have an officer in the station on 4 to 12. Midnights, it's just not possible. So not to sound like a broken record, but the staffing study was clear. You need those bodies to get the work done. And we're going to do the best we can with what we have. We're not complaining here, but we're not going to meet certain expectations. Right now, I'm listening to our traffic officer who's out dealing with numerous complaints that we receive on a daily basis because now traffic is picking up and people are complaining about speeding and they're complaining about crosswalk violations. They're complaining about stop signs. We're at the point now where the call volume gets so great at times where we have to take Dominic Nunziati off that assignment and he's answering calls. We could easily use one more traffic officer. What's this position going to do? Why do we need this position, right? Is the question probably on all your minds. We need bodies on the road to answer calls and to also at times when possible be proactive. We're dealing with a lot of issues right now, whether it be car breaks, robberies. We need officers to be visible, to be in the community to try to prevent those things. And community policing initiatives, we're still trying to do that. COVID's been very tough on us. But if you visit our social media pages, you'll see we've had several initiatives just in the recent weeks alone, just trying to make sure we're here. I mean, we are your caring police department that believes in community policing, that believes in public safety, working with all our elected leaders, working with our schools, to really provide an enhanced level of service to those we serve. And it's a very difficult political climate. I understand people have questions and have concerns throughout the country with everything going on, but I assure you that we're still going to continue to train. We're still going to continue to offer the very best in public safety services. And I look forward to the challenges of FY22 when, again, it can get a little frustrating where I know we're going to have to, again, put the show on the road and really kind of explain why, Westborough is going in the direction that it's going in. And like I said, it's a great police department. Honored to be leading it with Deputy Chief Minardi. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Shall we say it whenever?
Yep, hang on just one second, sorry. Christy, I saw your hand go up first, and then Chief, I know that you had said that Deputy Minardi was going to speak as well, so I just want to make sure that we didn't sort of lose him and not give him a chance to add on or do the cleanup hitting, or is he just here for questions?
He's going to explain the cruiser article, and okay. I don't know why everything that I said, if it's fresh in your head, if you wanted to answer a question now, but you can wait and.
Yeah, no, we'll take it kind of one segment at a time. We'll hold the cruiser article as next. Christy?
I just wanted to remind the board, so the labor position that we were talking about is, as well as the proposed additional police officer position, are both proposed as 7-month positions for FY21, and the police officer position is $37,200 or $4.50 impact on the average single family. So this is only one of the 3 positions that we had initially brought up for FY21.
Thanks. Thank you, Christy. Yes, Syed, you had some questions.
So Chief, thank you for that discussion. I'm just a little concerned. The numbers they're concerning. Would you mind just repeating, please forgive me, the percentage increase for your behavioral health calls since this pandemic started between last year and this year?
So those calls.
Sorry, go ahead.
The behavioral calls haven't gone up that much. It went from 116 to 123. The overdoses have increased.
How much, Chief? Overdoses? How much?
It was 50 last year this time, and it's 93 this year. So we're seeing an uptick. Quite frankly, we've had some obviously domestic issues. People are consuming, alcohol and narcotics. It's a stressful time for people. So we're seeing the after effects of that. Now, thankfully, we have the clinician through advocates, a grant that was written, a couple of years ago. We're in the 2nd year of the program right now, where that's been a huge help to us, where you see they're talking about that throughout the country. Well, we've been doing that. We're in year 2. We've been thinking outside the box. Again, Deputy Chief, outstanding job. Really trying to make sure, what can we do? What can we do to enhance? It is concerning. I mean, quite frankly, we've had 4 stabbings since February, one of involving a police officer in Southborough, with our clinician there, with Westborough Police there. So this has been definitely interesting times. And if you look at the trend prior to the coronavirus hitting us, we were on a record pace. It's getting busy. We're responding. We're dealing with issues. And quite frankly, I really could use quite a few more. And then, there are proactive things that I want to do that I can't do. People complaining about areas with suspicious activity, where tonight I have our bicycle out on patrol. Staffing doesn't allow that to happen in a lot of cases. And quite frankly, overtime has been tight, because of some of the issues that we have been dealing with. It's the nature of the beast. Sometimes officers get hurt. People get deployed in the military. These types of things happen. And we also carried over extra vacation time because of COVID, where people are going to be taking time off. So there's a whole host of reasons of really why it's imperative that we add personnel to the police department. And I've said, the fire department in the 40s with the able to apply for the grant and receive the grant to put those bodies on right away. We've applied for Cops Fast. We just don't qualify for it. Just like we've applied for some other grants that we haven't qualified for, but we'll continue to do that. But like I said, it's not a matter of where our numbers are now. It's a matter of where they need to be and how do we get there. And that's why we have that long-term hiring plan. It was a part of the strategic plan that that you folks supported to ensure that through FY25 we stagger these hires throughout the years. And I'm going to continue to advocate. I understand no is no, and we're going to do whatever we can to meet and hopefully exceed the expectations of those that we're honored to serve.
So just getting back, is it possible for you to share with the board the percentage breakdown? And I'm sorry, I'm at work, so I can't look at the screen. So is it possible for you to share with the board the percentage of calls in your department that are behavioral as compared to the broader calls that you take care of, for instance, whatever?
I mean, I can work on that, but it's just a fraction of what we do. It's just a fraction.
I know, but it. Forgive me. It's just something I worry about these. I'm just concerned about these 93 deaths, and so
not deaths, overdoses.
No, sorry, overdoses. Please forgive me. Overdoses. Please
not
forgive
deaths.
me. Overdoses.
We're saving a lot of people.
Yeah, and I'm just, and this is just something for, and again, I don't want to take too much of the time. Are we, at some point, if you had adequate staffing, would it be possible for you to work with, for instance, Kara, to identify these high risk? Because what happens with an overdose is once you overdose once, you are likely to do it again. Is it possible for us to target these individuals with interventions afterwards?
I mean, I'd be happy to have another conversation. I'm part of Joe Early's task force. We're putting a task force together where, don't forget, a lot of these overdoses, they're not from Westborough. They're people that are coming into Westborough. They're maybe going into the Spectrum facility. They're staying in our extended stay. They're driving through. They're visiting. So we have a task force in place, like in Plymouth, where we're able to track these overdoses and then contact the areas where these folks live, and then we're going to pay them a visit. These are things we're working on that COVID-19, quite frankly, put us behind the 8 ball. So these are things that we're working on. We're trying to better communicate. You're right, to knock on the door with a clinician in these different communities, because we may have a Westborough resident who overdoses in Shrewsbury and we don't know about it. And that's what we're working on to better communicate, to help people. And that's what it's all about. These are very, very trying times for law enforcement and public safety. And we're trying to get things done. But, COVID has affected all of us in the way we do business right now. And hopefully, we come up with a vaccine and we can get back to normal. Believe me, there's no one that wants to really get through this. This has been, since March to now, it's been trying. I'll be quite frank with you. And I'm in Westborough. I can only imagine in certain parts of the country what those folks are dealing with. So, but yeah, we're working on all that. And I'm more than happy to try to crunch some numbers when I have the time to facilitate your request.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other questions from the board? Ian?
Yes, Jeff, first of all, thank you. And thank you to your team for all the work you're doing. It doesn't go unnoticed, but you probably don't get thanks enough, but thank you for doing that. Just a quick question, just to kind of refresh my memory, but I believe this position we're looking for now, this is a position that when we were coming to town meeting in June, that you had originally hoped to get funded as of July 1st. We kind of pushed back and you agreed, and we pushed this back off that June town meeting. Is that correct? So this is really just taking that position now, making a 7-month position is kind of what you're asking for. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. And I have someone ready to go. He's a plug and play. It's basically, no, I don't have to spend any money on a psychological, anything like that. Fully academy trained. He's worked here for years. He knows the lay of the land, and it's going to be hitting the ground running. And that's what we really need right now. There's a few other things that are in play that don't matter. It's not why we're asking for this position, but we're going to be losing some bodies, due to military leave for an extended period of time and other things. So this is someone that can just slide right in right now and just hit the ground running. And it's really critical right now that we add some staff. And I don't know if you can hear the radio behind me, but turn the scanner on. Listen to what your officers are doing, and you hit the nail on the head. Team, team, team. I talk about location, but team. These officers are doing the work of two people. Our detectives hitting it out of the park every day. I mean, the caseload that they have, the crimes that they're solving right now, unbelievable. So I'm very proud of the Westborough Police Department, and we've done well with technology to keep up as best we can. But quite frankly, we need some tires on the road.
Great. Well, thank you for that, and I'm supportive of it. So thanks.
Thank you. Well, if there's nothing more from me, I'll mute and turn it over to the Deputy Police Chief.
Jeff, actually, I'm going to actually ask you to stay with us for just a minute. So just to follow up, I think the work that your department and surrounding towns who have collaborated as part of the Advocates Program has been commendable. I was in a conversation with some friends across the country, and we were talking about police matters. I'll just leave it at that. And I was telling them about the program, and they were like, seriously? Like, how does that program actually work? And they couldn't believe the type of work that happens and how we have a trained mental health expert along, with the police, deterring, helping, working with families, working with individuals. So while I realize that's not part of any of the requests today, I guess I would like some assurance. I don't recall when that grant runs out, but that we would be pursuing that again, and maybe more, adding to that program, as we look at renewal time.
So we did apply again. I believe 91,000. The deputy can correct me if I'm wrong. We were awarded the grant again. This is a regional collaborative. When this grant, dries up, I'm obviously going to come to you and ask me to put a clinician on the payroll. This is a jail diversion program. Just to remind everyone, this is in lieu of arresting people at times, getting them the help they need in a bunch of different levels. And it's an absolutely, I agree, fantastic program. As I sit in the chairs for Central Mass Chiefs on a leadership role, I can't tell, every meeting I push this program that, we're the only communities in Central Mass that are taking advantage of this. And thankfully, because we got in when we got in, hopefully this funding is going to be here for years and years to come. But it's a great program. Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's working like you wouldn't believe. And it's allowing the officer to get back on the road to answer that call while the clinician is doing what she does best, and that's providing services and follow-up for those that are in crisis. So, it's something that is, as long as I'm your chief of police, and that Deputy Chief Minardi is here in the leadership role as well, I can guarantee the two of us, we're never going to see this program leave if we can help it.
Well, I appreciate that reassurance. I know that for those who have interacted, with the program, they've appreciated it, and it's, the numbers speak for themselves. So thank you. I actually don't have any questions about the material you presented. Alan, are you all set? I saw you come.
I'm all set. You took my thunder with, asking about the maintenance of the clinician program and seeing it continue. So
right,
thank you.
Sorry, I didn't see you on. You were on mute still. So, all right. Thank you, Chief Laurie. Deputy Chief Minardi, you're on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm just here to discuss the capital project for the replacement of the cruisers. It hasn't changed from what was initially presented to you back in the beginning of the year. As I'm sure you're aware, we were asking for 2 replacement vehicles and adding 2 vehicles to the fleet. In June, we were approved 1 replacement vehicle. We're in the process of having that built. Believe it or not, it hasn't even come in yet. So if the additional person added position is approved, we're still going to be seeking the 2 additional vehicles to the fleet, as well as the 1 other additional replacement. Just to give you a little background on the vehicles that are being replaced, the one we're working on replacing right now is over 100,000 miles. It's a 2017 Ford Utility. It's actually been deadlined. It has some serious mechanical issues that are going to be too costly to repair, so we're actually down a car right now. The other vehicle we'd be looking to replace is another 2017 utility. I'm sorry, 2016, has over 120,000 miles on it. So, you know, it's just a matter of time before that one goes down as well. We were able to secure the one that's been ordered already from the approval in June is the Ford Utility Hybrid. So that does, you know, go along with the town's green community initiatives. And we would be looking to replace the other cruiser, the 2016, with another hybrid. Another vehicle that we'd be looking to add is a vehicle for it would be a Chevy Tahoe, a vehicle for the accident reconstruction officer. He currently has the Ford Utility with 120,000 miles on it. And it's just not big enough for him. He doesn't have enough cargo space for all the equipment that he needs to carry. So we were looking at a Chevy Tahoe. The Ford Expedition, which is the bigger model than the Utility, isn't police rated. So that's why we were looking at the Chevy. The other additional vehicle would be an increase to the admin fleet. We currently have 4 officers assigned to the detective division. They only have 3 vehicles assigned to them, so we'd be looking to get another vehicle added to that. Again, we're looking to purchase at least 2 of those vehicles as the hybrid. The hybrids do cost more money. They're about $4,000 more than the regular Utility. We do have some data somewhere from what Ford says the savings is. So Ford estimates the hybrid vehicle will save 1,276 gallons of fuel per year. And they say that's resulting in potentially about $3,500 in fuel costs. And it would reduce 25,500 pounds of CO2 per vehicle. So, you know, obviously there is a savings that would add up over time related to the hybrid vehicles. There has been some discussion about alternative fundings. There was some talk about, well, is there a lease program? And a lot of people think there is a lease program. What we found is there's a financing program. It's not really a lease program. You're just financing the purchase of the vehicles like a regular car loan. But we did go through MHQ, who supplies all our cruisers. And we had them do an estimate for us for the replacement of 3 cars. The initial cost would be around $162,000, a little over that. They finance it over 5 years at an annual percentage rate of 4.75%. So it's not reducing the cost of the vehicles. It's just as a regular car loan, it's spreading it out over the 5 years. So you'd basically be looking at adding about $3,200 a year in interest. And again, that's going to compound yearly for the 5 years because, as you know, we add cruisers every year. So the second year of that financing program, if we were to add another 3 vehicles, and then the 3rd year and the 4th year and the 5th year, you keep adding, you know, hypothetically 3 cars every year. You know, by the 5th year, you'd be looking at over $16,000 in interest, probably with a total of over $48,000 that you've paid for that 5 years, continuing to finance those vehicles. There's also $545 underwriting fee that you'd pay every year. So we don't really see the cost benefit for a financing program. It's not a leasing program. It's strictly just a financing program. So with that being said, if you have any other questions regarding our cruiser replacements, I'd be happy to.
DC, can you just explain to any conversations you've had regarding the grant potential that we have for these cruisers?
So the town I'm not really all that familiar with the players, but Christie knows more about it than I do. The Town Green Communities Committee, however it's referred to, they did apply to the state for the grant funding. And I have been in touch with Peter. And he did say that the town was approved for $10,000 grant reimbursement for the purchase of 2 hybrid vehicles. I did tell him that we did in fact already order one, and if this was approved in November, we would be ordering the second one.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. I'll open up to the board for questions. Alan, I see you're off mute. Or you have a question?
I think it sounds like a plan. Thank you for doing the research on the leasing, and which is effectively just financing. And so, while it looks like there could be a short-term gain from a cash flow standpoint, this is coming out of our capital reserves. As it is, and over the long term, it makes it significantly more expensive. And it's good to hear that the grant for the hybrid vehicles more than covers the incremental cost to get a hybrid as opposed to a traditional fuel. So I'm supportive of this.
Good.
Okay. So would it, I have a question. I'm supportive of this as well. Since, while I understand that I don't know what options are available on a Chevy Tahoe these days that, is police vehicle capable. But I guess the first question is there a hybrid option for that type of vehicle? And then for the admin vehicle, I know that we got a grant for just the 2, which we've already discussed. But for the admin fleet vehicle, have we considered purchasing a hybrid for that? I mean, to me, it would be, I think the community would be supportive, the expenditure of funds would be, I think, more supported by adding in a layer of greenness, if you will, in that purchase.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not that familiar with the Chevy lineup. I know, we were talking about the Tahoe because when we were first putting this capital together, there was one available through Liberty Chevrolet, the company that has the bid contracts for cruisers through Chevy. Yeah. I'm not even really sure what's available now. And it kind of goes along the same lines with the admin vehicle. It's going to come down to availability. It's, like I said, we got the approval to order the one cruiser in June. We haven't even taken shipment of it yet. It hasn't even arrived at MHQ to get built. I had a discussion with them about ordering another admin vehicle, and they said it could take up to 6 months. So, some of it's going to have to come down to availability, but we're going to make a commitment to try to purchase hybrid vehicles whenever possible.
Yeah, and again, you guys are the experts, what kind of vehicles you need, so I certainly don't want to suggest otherwise, but I think to the extent that any vehicle that can be hybrid, that we do that, again, understanding the cost of it up front, I think that the long-term savings are there, and it certainly aligns with the town's initiatives. So I'm certainly supportive of the 4 vehicles, and I'd love to see 3 of them be hybrids.
We'll do our best. Like I said, we're on board to make a commitment to get the hybrid vehicles whenever possible.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments from the board. So
Great.
We'll thank both our chief and deputy chief for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Shelby, just real quick,
Yep.
As you guys said, I just want to say I'm fully supportive. No questions. We've gone through it. Thank you for all the work, all the information, but fully supportive as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Be safe out there, you guys. Bye-bye. Okay. All righty. I think Christy and board here, keep me honest. I think we are moving to the town seal article.
Yep, so your agenda item is to review all of the articles, but specifically the board had wanted to talk about the town seal article as well. So if you want to skip to that article.
Yep, I think we'll focus on the ones we seem to have questions on. Okay. So as I recall, I know we're going to talk about the housing trust. So Alan and team will be on it in a little bit in our agenda to talk about that. But as it relates to the town seal, I think as I recall the discussion where we last left off, it's really a matter of does, we had decided at one point to put this article on the warrant. And again, for the public's benefit, it's not an article to change the town seal. It's to start the process to explore a change to the town seal. I think it really comes down to us as a board. I mean, I'll be right out front and say that I don't think the timing is right. I think that we're a month away, hopefully, from having our town meeting. I think we want to move through it as expeditiously as we can, allowing for good discussion that our moderator always allows for. And we want to promote certainly attendance, but we all know that this is a really big, hot topic of interest for many, many residents. And I really worry about, one, how many people will show up for this specific article alone, and two, the fear that people have about the pandemic and not showing up and feeling like their voices aren't being heard. So I think we're sort of in a lose-lose position if we either way, but I think the right thing to do is to defer it to another forum potentially, but certainly, which we could talk about as a board, but not to have it on this warrant. So that's my view. Anyone? Yeah, Ian.
Yeah, I'm completely supportive, and we've talked about this, I think, many times. I think it totally makes sense. We don't know what things will be like in November, and as we prepare for that, and I think understanding comments we even got from our special were 3 articles and it went rather well. We still got comments about, having it in time. So I think putting things on that are not time sensitive. Well, some people will disagree and they will think this is time sensitive. I think we have to be realistic here, look about getting the work of the town done. And not saying that this is not important. This is important to a lot of people. We know that, but is it important that we have it and have that discussion at this town meeting or not? I think it can be deferred and allows us to get through that business of the town that needs to get taken care of at this meeting, and get us through it as expeditiously as possible and safely as possible. So I am, like you, Chairman Marshall, I am supportive of recommending that we remove this article from this town meeting warrant.
I saw, John, I saw your chat. Give me a second to go around here with the board. Syed, I see you're off mute. Did you want to add something?
No, I think
Okay.
There's some disturbing data about an uptick in cases. So anything that we can do to minimize the time that we spend in that meeting would be a good thing. So
Okay.
we need to be careful.
Okay, thank you. Alan.
Yeah, I'll just say that I hesitantly support pulling it off the warrant for the reasons we've discussed. I don't want this to be misconstrued as a lack of support for this concept. I think it's important to remind folks that the town seal cannot be changed without a vote at town meeting. And this vote was in particular to gain consensus or direction from the town as to if and how to proceed with a process that might lead, that may lead to a change in the town seal. And so on the one hand, this is an issue we want to hear from people. We want this vote to happen. We want it to be in a forum where people are comfortable coming out and it's safe to do so. And we're not worried about crowd size, and they're not worried about their personal health to do it. And, at the same time, know that that's not something that's required for us to do. But we feel it, we've talked in the past as a board, we feel it's important enough to get that level of community input. And if we're going to look at doing this, if we're going to take this step, that it be done in the most inclusive and thoughtful and deliberative, way possible. And so I don't want this to be a delay, seen as a delay or an avoidance of an issue that could be considered controversial. It's really one about managing the environment and ensuring the broadest participation possible.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. John Arnold?
Yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts as I thought this over. When I first read this article, I thought it was going to be a relatively straightforward, just the selectmen asking if the town was interested in starting a process for the Diversion Inclusion Committee to do this. And if that's the intention, then I think that's relatively straightforward. But I think as I heard discussion about it, it sounded like the intent of the article was going to be to give people a chance to say what they thought about the town seal. And so my concern with the article, the way it's written, is that I'm trying to imagine what a motion would be, essentially, if the intent is to get that direction at this meeting, and it reflects not only on, regardless of COVID, we all know that after a certain amount of time, someone can move the question and turn off debate. So my concern is that if we want to have an article on town meeting whose purpose is strictly to get comments on the town seal, then even if we weren't in COVID and even if we had all the space for all the voters, after an hour or so, somebody could move the question and terminate debate. And so you'd have voters who were disgruntled that they wouldn't get their voices heard. So I just wanted to mention an alternative, and we don't have to go into the details now, but I just wanted to let the town know that last year, I think it was early 2019, when the Country Club Operating Committee was first thinking about changing the way they were, the role of the golf pro. The Country Club Operating Committee wanted to hear from the country club members, but didn't want to run the meeting themselves in terms of making sure that, that it didn't get into a give and take. It was really like a listening session. So I was just going to suggest that if the selectmen and if the Diversity Inclusion Committee is interested in hearing from as many people as possible about all the different things, then either I or someone else, though I'd certainly willingly do it, we could host a series of outside town meeting listening sessions where I could moderate and everybody who wanted to could listen, and we could schedule as many or as few of them so people wouldn't feel they had to sit through 4 hours of other people's thoughts, and everybody could essentially sign into one of these Google Meet meetings or a Zoom meeting and just give everybody 2 or 3 minutes and then just have people raise their hands and collect their information. So that would be one way to do it. So everybody would have a chance. It wouldn't have to be one place, one time, and we wouldn't have to run the risk of having somebody move the question. So just wanted to throw that out there that as you were mentioned, there are ways to do this without having to risk doing it at a town meeting where we don't know how many people will or won't sign up or show up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that in prior discussions by the board on this, we've hashed through a number of different options. And John, I love the idea that you're presenting as a way to be as inclusive as possible, and yet to sort of make sure that, I'll bring folks back a little bit here, that part of the reason why the Board of Selectmen put this article on the warrant as it is right now is because honestly, we wanted to manage the process as best as possible rather than having this come through as just a citizen's petition. Once that happens, it's on the warrant and it sort of takes its course. And in doing that, well, certainly it's the right of the people to do that. To Mr. Arnold's point, you could bring an article like that on town meeting floor. There could be discussion, someone moves the question, and you're sort of rolling the dice, so to speak, as to where the vote goes at that point. So I think I can speak for the board in that we were trying to guide the process in a way that was as equitable and inclusive as possible by doing it this way, and yet while still navigating the murky waters of COVID and delays of town meeting and such. So I think there are some other ways to do this that get us to kind of the desired outcome, that being understand the community's interest in moving this forward or not. And I think we should kind of consider those as a separate project, not an article at town meeting. So, and not at this one, I should say. So let's come up with a process and then figure out, kind of the next steps. But again, being transparent about it and inclusive and safe. So, okay. Is there any other discussion? Ultimately, we're going to vote on the warrant, so we won't take a vote right now on this. Okay. All right. And then I think the remaining.
Shall we? Sorry.
Yep.
Hello.
Sorry. Yep.
So help me understand why. So we're not going to vote on this, taking this off the warrant today? I'm just confused here.
No, we are. We're going to go through the whole warrant tonight, but the way we've done in the past is we've gone through the whole warrant. We're just kind of going through the articles that we had questions on for board discussion.
But we're not closing the warrant tonight. That's next week.
I'm sorry?
We're closing the warrant next week, but I think we will go through. My plan was to go through this one final time just to kind of say, are there any other questions?
Okay. No, so I'm just saying that, and so we'll just call this article out separately like we do always at the end?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry for that, if that was confusing. Okay. The general bylaw amendment, which is timing of election and town meeting. Yep.
So this is just, obviously this timing is a little bit different because we're continuing to talk about the FY21 budget. But in the past, we talked about the fall town meeting being an opportunity for amending bylaws and also for emergency purchases. And so because we've talked about this bylaw being changed, and we actually did change it this year, even pre-COVID, we changed the timing of our election and annual town meeting because of the presidential elections. I put it forward for the board's discussion. I know that there has been some concern raised about moving the town meeting before the town election. So if the board, shares that concern, there are other changes that you may want to move forward with, and maybe leave that discussion, that particular piece of the discussion, for another day.
Okay. Does anyone want to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. I think this one, the movement of the election and changing that process, I think similar to what we just talked about town seal, I don't think it's pressing and needs to be done. I think there's a lot of discussion that could happen around that, a lot of debate. So my take would be for that one is to remove that piece to it. I do think some of the other suggestions here make sense to kind of, codify some things that we've done, to remove some language that would give us more flexibility, remove some language that in the past made sense, like town meeting week, but we don't really designate it as such anymore. So it's kind of a cleanup piece. My take, I'm fine with putting other things that I view as cleanup and less controversial and quicker to discuss, and removing that which is maybe more controversial or had more discussion and really is not time sensitive, that it has to be done at this town meeting, and just push that off for the future.
I would just add to what Ian just said, and just say that, John has so these are two articles that really require resident input, voter input, and I would urge that we work with John to have those use what he's offered to have listening sessions, so where people can potentially express their opinion about this, but it's not an urgent matter. It can be. I think it should be delayed.
Christy, do you want to comment?
No, I would just say that I think that I do think that there's, as Ian mentioned, I think there's a lot of cleanup in that proposal. And probably, the one thing in there that requires more discussion, I think it's fair to have that discussion prior to bringing it to town meeting. I think that's fine. But I do think the rest of it is sort of housekeeping. Though, one of the things is changing the town meeting time to 9 a.m., which the board just voted to do for your November town meeting. I know that we've talked about the benefits of that related to people who want to attend town meeting, whether they, are not driving at night or have little children that they want to put to bed. There could be advantages to starting at 9 a.m. There could be advantages to giving us more time in one day to accomplish all, or to pass through all of the articles, as opposed to coming back on a second night when people are, working during the weekdays. So I haven't heard any concern about that piece of it, but I would say that that's the other piece that's more significant, I guess, than the other pieces.
I would just say that I think that this discussion, while necessary, I think this is a discussion, again, I would say that all the more reason to have all of this discussion later, but not at this town meeting. That would be my feeling. Cool.
Thank you. Alan?
For me, the only thing that I would see as being a point of contention would be the decision as to whether or not annual town meeting would come before the election or after the election. I look at everything, all the changes proposed in Section 2, which is fundamentally just clarifying the Board of Selectmen's existing authority to set the date of special fall town meeting and give, the board the flexibility to address it around holidays or other necessary events. The other changes with respect to annual town meeting in the elections, yes, we moved our town election this year not to conflict with other primaries. That won't be the case, I believe, come this coming spring. So if we, while I'd prefer to address, I don't see this as taking much time at this meeting. I'd prefer to address the non-controversial things if we only wanted to address Section 2. And that cleanup, I'd be comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, I don't think I know we've talked a lot about this, but I'm not sure it's as, I don't know that I'd use controversial, and I'm not sure how many people are going to really care. I think that we've certainly shared concerns about the timing of elections, and if someone running for office, I don't know, would be advantaged or disadvantaged, by the timing of that meeting. I don't know. I guess I'm not so sort of hung up or worried about that. I feel like the process will work itself out. So that doesn't concern me. I don't see these changes in either Section 1 or 2 being major. So I'd be comfortable in proceeding with them as they are, but erring on the side of moving the meeting along, maybe we focus on Section 2 and leave it at that for this meeting.
My one big concern with Section 1 is if town meeting starts the Saturday before the Tuesday for election of officers and town meeting's not complete,
Right.
then you would have potentially a change in board representation in the middle of town meeting.
Right.
And so,
So just to clarify,
unless I'm misreading the timing.
no, and you can still, I mean, I think that if the board is clear that that particular conversation should happen prior to putting this on the town meeting warrant, but if you just change that word in the second paragraph to on the Saturday following instead of the Saturday preceding, you would eliminate that concern. It would actually be the same as we currently have, where it would be the Saturday following the election.
Yeah.
You could still move forward with all the other changes in section 1 while allowing for that broader discussion another time.
Okay.
Share my screen here. So I made the change here. So on the Saturday following.
Okay.
This changes it from the second Saturday following just to the Saturday following.
Oh, right. You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we could leave it as the second Saturday. I think the changes in this first section are, I mean, the first thing, the changes in the section are the cleanup of the language that we don't need, which is, talking about 2011 and 12. It changes the election to, instead of the first Tuesday, the third Tuesday, which is what we did this year.
Mhm.
And then in the second paragraph, it doesn't call out the need to designate town meeting week, which we don't do. It also does not call out a required dinner break. And then it changes the time of town meeting from 1:00 p.m. to 9 a.m. So if we said on the second Saturday following, then that would be consistent with what we have now. And then the only real change we would have here would be the 9 a.m.
It wouldn't be the second, sorry, guys, it wouldn't be the second Saturday because when would that ever occur if
It would be the second Saturday following the election.
Yeah, which is what it is now.
but the election is the third Tuesday.
Right. So
Yeah.
you'd have the third Tuesday, then Saturday again, you'd have town meeting.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the following Saturday. It wouldn't be the Saturday after that Tuesday. It would be the Saturday following that first Saturday, which is what we've done historically with the.
But so I think the language, if the intent is for us to have town meeting before,
No, we're changing that.
No, we're not doing that.
No, yeah, we're not doing that.
okay, well, the way this reads doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just looking at the calendar in March for 2021. So the third Tuesday is March 16th.
Yep.
The second Saturday of the month.
No.
is
After the second Saturday after.
Let me finish. The second Tuesday is the 14th. The second Saturday is the 14th of the month. The second Saturday following the election is the 28th.
Correct.
Right.
That's
So we're
what we
saying
have.
we would have it on the 28th. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yep, it'd be the 28th.
Okay,
The 27th.
27th, sorry. Yeah, it was my calendar view. Thanks, Alan.
That was a test, Alan. You got it right. I just trusted you, Shelby.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay. So it is the second Saturday following the election of officers, not the second Saturday of the month. Okay, I just want to make sure that we don't write something and people go, who wrote this?
So really, only the two substantive changes in section 1 is moving it from the first Tuesday to the third Tuesday, and
Yep.
the second piece is that starting the meeting at 9 a.m. versus 1 p.m.
Right.
And we eliminated the called out dinner break. Doesn't mean we can't
Right.
do that. It just gives us the flex. It doesn't, hard coded in there. It gives us flexibility to do what we want.
So it says adjournment of the session shall be to the following Monday at 7 p.m. Oh, adjourning the first session. Do we need to say that? Adjournment of the first session.
This is anything that's not highlighted or sorry, in bold is not new. So this is.
I know. I'm just wondering, does it need to be added? Adjournment of the first session or any session?
I think is it okay for me to speak for a little bit?
Yeah,
You can
please.
shut me down anytime you want. I actually, I don't, as other people have said, I think this is relatively straightforward if we don't change the order of the election and town meeting. I think probably the people who are most affected by changing it to the third Tuesday for the election is the town clerk staff. So I'll let Wendy talk about the effect there. So I think one of the reasons for not postponing the whole thing would be to try to relieve some problems that the town clerk has and can see coming. And other than that, I think if the relative ordering of the election and the town meeting were left the same, then I think it comes down to trying to make this to give, just as we're trying to do for the regularly scheduled fall town meeting, make this as flexible as possible. So although the second Saturday after, the only problem that we run into if we move from the first Tuesday in March till the second Tuesday in March, so the third Tuesday in March, is that we may start having conflicts with either Passover or Easter. So if we want to leave it with the second Saturday, it could be that we want to work with, and I'm willing to work with any one of you, Christy, town council or whatever. It could be that that the town would want to have flexibility such that it's a Saturday following the election with some flexibility given to the selectmen. I think you can make the case that the adjournment of the session to Monday, that was really also a holdover from back when we had town meeting week. And it really is the meeting that decides when to adjourn to. So just like town council had said that the selectmen, it's in their overview of when the town meeting could be, no matter what the bylaw says. You can make the case that adjournment of the session, you could actually leave the adjournment of the session and you could say, and any subsequent sessions, shall be agreeable by majority vote, and you could work that out. And let me just scroll down in my version here. So I think there's a way to work that out such that we don't change the ordering of the election and town meeting. We give the selectmen flexibility to say it's a Saturday, and if we want to move to a 9 a.m. start, that's fine with me. And then there's some other cleanup too, because the whole reason and then the first sentence of the next section there, if of all the articles haven't been acted on by the end of the Thursday night session, that's also a holdover from the old days of town meeting week, when this bylaw was trying to prescribe and trying to ask other organizations in town not to schedule meetings during that week, because we would, back in the day when we had lots of articles, we would go Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I think there's actually even more that can be removed from here. And so I would say maybe, in the next week, by the time you close the warrant on Tuesday, maybe town council, Christy, one of the selectmen, Wendy, and I can go over it and do a cleanup and come up with words that will meet the flexibility that do that. And we can worry about the relative ordering of election and town meetings, some other day. But again, I'm not stating that I have a preference, because I'll be moot on this. I'm just pointing out problems that we can try to solve if we're going to try to, clean this up.
Can I say something?
I was just going to say, Wendy.
So the only problem is a presidential year. For a presidential primary, it wouldn't matter if it was the second Saturday or the third Saturday, except in a presidential year, because it's very difficult to get through, just move the election is great. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could have it the following week. It doesn't necessarily have to go out 2 weeks, but for us, it would be helpful. But in a presidential year, I mean, you could go out a week. So if you wanted every 4 years, town meeting maybe would go 2 weeks. But if it didn't work because of holidays, I'm sure it's fine. It's just a presidential year is difficult.
Yeah. So should we take this? I mean, it sounds like there's a willingness to keep this on with maybe some wordsmithing of the language here to build in ideal flexibility, but not to make it confusing. To Wendy brings a good point. During the presidential year, maybe there's going to be language in there that speaks to presidential election year. There's going to be some flexibility there that doesn't require extra hoops. Yes, Christy?
Just as a reminder, the under Mass General Law, which we just voted, we voted pursuant to that. You voted pursuant to that earlier tonight. You have that flexibility. So I certainly think that we can broaden the language and clean up the language in a way that makes it a little more clear that flexibility exists. But I don't think that we have to be concerned with mentioning all sort of scenarios within the bylaw, because you do have that flexibility.
And I just would like to ask, these are important discussions and conversations, and I'm just wondering, we have town meeting coming up in November. Do we really want to be spending our time discussing this, or can we punt this off till afterwards and, clean this stuff up? I mean, I don't think there's a compelling urgency to discuss this at this town meeting. Am I missing something here?
No, I don't think there's anything compelling. I think it's just a matter of rather than pushing it down the road. My sense is let's get it done and get it fixed and cleaned up. But it's not compelling for the same reason we just talked about, with the town seals. So if the board is comfortable, ultimately we'll close a warrant at a future meeting, but leaving it off at this point, then we can do that. That's kind of where we started the discussion tonight.
So the only, and I hear exactly what Syed said, and it kind of relates to what we said before, and trying to streamline this, and there seems to be some things we could work on for the next meeting. I guess the only thing that I look at it that would be, so we don't have a presidential election coming up, so not changing it won't impact us the first Tuesday of March 2021. The only change that has potential impact would be we wouldn't be moving to 9 a.m. would be still at 1 p.m. for next year's town meeting. Would just basically stay the way it is. I guess, Christy, the question I had there, though, with what you said, the general law that we have the ability to move the date, would we have the ability to move, the selectmen have the authority to move the time to be different than what's in the bylaw?
Yeah, because the bylaw right now speaks to fall town meeting happening at 7:00 on a Monday night. So, yes.
If we could verify that, then I would be entirely comfortable with deferring this. Again, we don't have a pressing need for moving the election for 2021, and again, it would streamline things on the meeting warrant.
So if for some reason we're told that we can't move it to 9 a.m., you want to leave it on the November warrant? I would say that that came up when we went over it with the finance committee about the sort of urgency of the change, and there's no urgency. There will never be an urgency. It's just something that we've talked about sort of cleaning up over time. And if the board's goal is to reduce the warrant number of warrant articles to shorten the meeting, it's fine if we want to wait. So
let's
okay, let's do that.
That's just my part. I can't vote. I'm just speaking as one member of the board.
Yeah.
Right. I'm comfortable waiting.
Yeah. I would be interested just to verify that question on 9 a.m., but I don't think that shouldn't change. I mean, if we've lived with 1 o'clock for a long time, we can live with it for one more year if we need to.
I mean, I don't want to overly complicate this, but I think, I know Alan posted in the chat what the 2021 holidays look like. I mean, I think we should, without making this look like a Rorschach test, we should look out a couple of years, presidential primaries, this, that, and everything, and let's look at it to make sure we're sort of not looking at this myopically and like, let's make sure that, and we're not overcomplicating it. Let's reflect on what the law says we can and can't do to keep the language as broad as possible, but yet not kind of loosey-goosey. So it gives.
I mean, the law is very clear that if you conflict with a holiday, you have every ability to move it. So well, assuming that you all agree.
It sounds like we do.
Okay. And I just wanted, this is just a good time to mention that we did receive an email from a citizen who noted another, I would say, housekeeping cleanup item in the general bylaws under licensing and permits, which I was going to bring back to you at next week. But I think in the spirit of what the board is doing, it certainly is something that can wait. It's just referring to the wrong section and something that we can certainly fix in March versus now. But I wanted to bring that up so that that person knows that we have it on our radar and that we'll bring it up in March.
What is it for, Christy?
It's, and I can send this out to the board so you can review it, but it's under Article 24 of the general bylaws, which is licenses and permits. The section 10 of that bylaw erroneously refers to section 6 as opposed to section 8, I think, when it sort of, and it also, and it's about people who want to put a card on their house that says no soliciting and how people have to abide by that. So the other concern that they had was the size of the font that's required and the size of the card. So another cleanup item, and it's something that I just wanted to bring up to the board's attention, but we'll bring back at the annual time.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like that one could get a little lengthy as well, but yes, thank you for bringing it up. Okay, all right. Well, in the spirit of what we're talking about, our next item was additional articles as needed. I'm hoping there are none.
So the only other one I was going to bring up was the building revolving account. And again, if you were interested in shortening the warrant, that is certainly one that can wait until the March town meeting as well. That's something that we don't get a lot of revenue for our buildings, especially right now during COVID. We're not getting any. And so I would, while that's again a bylaw change that you would typically see in the fall, that could also wait until the March town meeting warrant.
Let's wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. We're sort of on track here. Let's get back on it. Okay. So just Christy, before we move on to our next agenda item, so do we need to vote on any of these now, or we can just vote? Didn't speak clearly before. I thought we were going to vote in support or not of these tonight.
So I have a discussion vote on the agenda, and if you want to vote to place them or remove them from the warrant, or you can take all your votes next week when you close the warrant. So
what are you guys inclined to do?
I think the votes, we can wait till next week, but I would move, and this, Selectman Hashman said this too, I would move that through the discussion, it sounds like the agreement of the board that we remove the town seal article, the general bylaw amendment articles, and the other bylaw article regarding the
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Yep.
Did you make a motion?
Basically, the warrant we get next week already has those removed. I think that was as I understood from each of the board members, we were all fine with that. So let's just clean it up now. That was my motion, and
okay.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
So
Okay,
to be clear, the warrant will be without these articles. It'll be the articles we've already discussed. Yes.
Correct. We're removing these from the warrant that we'll see next week.
Perfect. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So roll call vote. Selectman Hashmi.
Yes.
Selectman Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
Selectman Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, yes.
And Selectman Marshall, yes, 4004 being present to remove those articles. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, discussion vote to set fees and execute agreement with ChargePoint for town EV charging station. Christy, is Jim on?
He is not, but I'm going to speak to it, and then Pete Dunbeck is also on to speak on behalf of Stan Westborough. So as the board is aware, we did install the EV charging stations. That was something that the board had voted to support for the Green Community Grant. It turned out that the timing of the grant and the incentives that we would receive through National Grid was such that we paid for it out of the facilities budget, because it was such a great deal that we couldn't pass up. It was about $4,000 to install these, which is significantly less than would have been without those incentives and credits. And so those did get installed, and now we're at a point where we're ready to power them and let people use them. And so what we need to do is the board has to set fees. The board has the authority to set fees, and we need to set a fee for the charging stations. And so in your packets, you'll see that ChargePoint has indicated to us that the common fee for the area is 31 cents. However, since you received your packet, Jim Stewart has talked to Pete Dunbeck, and Sustainable Westborough had done some additional work in looking at what might be the correct or proposed fee. And so I think he's going to speak to that right now.
Thank you, Christy. And I'm comfortable with kind of any outcome here. I'm just providing some perspective because I've thought about this. There are really 3 models we could consider. One is to charge for the electricity approximately what we would think would cover all of our fees, which includes the electricity and any fees that go to ChargePoint. And based on what the country club pays for electricity, I think that that's probably about 25 or 26 cents a kilowatt hour. The second choice would be to have a setup where the first hour of charging is free, and then after the first hour, you charge a much higher amount, maybe 35 cents a kilowatt hour, and with the expectation that you would recover the cost, but you incent people to use it by making the first hour free, and that they're not sitting dormant. We want to encourage people to use it. So it's kind of an incentive. The third model would be to try to find a marketing sponsor where a local business could basically pay the first hour free and put a sign on the, there's a video display on these charging stations, and you could run a promotional video or some other message on this video and have a sponsor that, a real estate firm or a law office or a bank or somebody, and they cover the cost for the first hour and then set a fee after that. Since we have really no operational experience with this, and we don't know how much traffic this is going to get, kind of the safe bet would be to take the first option and just set a fixed fee, let it run for 3 to 6 months and see how much it's getting used. My concern is that with the golf course being closed for the winter, it's not going to get much use. If we wanted to, we could make the first hour free and try to encourage people to use it. It would then expose us to potentially people using it just for the first hour and leaving, and we never get the higher rate and we cover the cost. But those are the choices, I think.
Go ahead, Dan, sorry.
No problem. So Pete, I have to proclaim my ignorance here, but for somebody that had a car that they were charging there, what is the normal time that someone would need to charge? So I guess it goes back to your question: is will we get number of people that go for the hour and that adequately charges their car or whatever? So it's kind of like someone going to the gas pump and paying $5 versus paying 20, or is it that 1 hour will get them, half a charge, a quarter of a charge, a full charge?
A fully discharged kind of high range car, which high range means a couple 100 miles on a full charge, would need to charge for about 8 hours or so to get a full charge. But people don't run their batteries down to empty. They're more likely to, for example, come in and play golf, set it up and charge, and come back after 4 hours and their battery would be fully charged because they wouldn't have run it all the way down. Or go to dinner at the restaurant and stay for an hour or two and come out and it'd be fully charged. And it'd be 2 hours worth of charge. 2 hours would give you, let's see, probably about 70 miles of range.
Okay, thank you. I guess, Christy, if we went with the proposal, or I do like the idea of incentivizing people to use it. How would we pay for that? How would the town pay for that first hour of charges? Do we have a facility or a budget that would pay that?
We've budgeted a small amount for the charging stations in the electricity budget. I think $2,500. But I don't think we anticipated offering this for free. I think that we anticipated covering our costs, unless obviously we pursue the advertising that Pete's talking about.
I'm sorry, I'm missing this. Aren't we going to at least turn even with these stations? Am I missing something here?
So
the goal and the expectation is it would be cost neutral. The question is, could you incent people to use it by making the first hour free, but then increasing the price for people who play 18 holes of golf and their car is there for 3 hours? So they'd be paying for 3 hours and get 1 hour free on the front end. But the rate for the 3 hours would be enough to cover all 4 hours.
I guess my question is, does that incentive have to be an hour? Given that the golf course as a facility isn't year-round yet, and visits to the restaurant will tend to be, probably less than 2 hours. Could we do a lower rate or free for half an hour and then an increased rate so that we leverage the restaurant visitors more?
Yes, I think you could do that. We'd have to check the exact program with ChargePoint, but I believe you can set it for reduced, for free for the first half hour and then 30 cents or 35 cents or whatever after that.
Actually, my understanding is that we can change the fee as needed. There's no limit. And so I would recommend that we attempt to cover our costs initially until we get an idea of what the usage will look like.
I'm with Christy on this. I mean, I'm all about supporting this, but times are tight, and so we should at least let's cover our costs, and then we can worry about fine tuning. Right? You can set the price as much as you want, right, Christy? I mean, we could change it tomorrow if we wanted, right? All it takes is a vote of the board, right? Am I getting this correct?
Right.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with that also, and I wondered. So I believe that 26 cents would cover all of our costs, including the ChargePoint fees. I know that ChargePoint had said a lot of and Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're saying that other towns are charging like 31 cents.
Right.
I mean, we can always charge more, but that just disincents people to use it. The way I got the 26 cents was that the town pays about less than 20 cents a kilowatt hour for the country club electricity. And the charge point fee is 10%. So that would be 22 cents a kilowatt hour. So I made it, in my thinking, it's like 25, 26 would be pretty safe to cover our fees.
So we should also think about other incremental costs. You know, I know that they're not on the parking lot, but they're near that. I don't know if they have to be shoveled out, if there has to be access to them beyond just plowing up to them. But if there has to be any additional care taken as that lot gets plowed in the winter. So there's you know, I mean, it's kind of a buried cost because it's our own DPW doing the parking or whoever, you know, it's part of the plowing we're already doing, but there might have to be some care for those in the winter. So, I mean, so Pete, for an hour of, let's just use the 25 cents as a number. So it's per kilowatt per hour. So if I were to charge it for 3 hours, it would be 75 cents. Am I missing that? Is that not the way it works?
Each hour, I'm just using my car as a reference. Each hour, my car charges about 8 kilowatt hours per hour.
Oh, 8 per, okay, sorry. I'm with Ian on the not knowing how these vehicles work. Okay, so 8 times that times 3 as an example. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically like $2 an hour for that car if it was 25 cents.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should certainly make sure we at least cover our costs and get some experience with this. And, you know, I like Alan's idea of, you know, maybe, but I just don't think we have enough experience to know how often they're going to be used and, you know, even at a half hour. So I think we should try to cover our costs. And I'm kind of a round number person. 31 cents seems odd to me. So I think you either go with 29 cents and make it feel like a bargain or just make it 30.
So the marketing person in me says we should be doing something like 27.8 so that it stands out, but
That's some odd marketing.
I'm comfortable with 29. I'm comfortable with 27 or 26.
Do I hear a motion?
Go ahead, Alan.
So I move to set the fee of the EV charging stations at 28 cents per kilowatt hour, and further to authorize the town manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with ChargePoint in conjunction with review by town council.
I knew you were going to land on 28 cents.
You sprung that one on us. I'll second
I
that.
wanted to have a little card up to do the big reveal.
Wait for it.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Okay, and then what is I think it would just be helpful to Syed's point about our ability to change the rates. I just want to make sure we're not bound and we can change those rates with a board vote at any time. It doesn't require a charge point. Okay.
Well, I mean, we have to go back to ChargePoint to change the rate, but we, under our contract with them, we can change it.
Right,
So.
we own it, we just have to notify them.
Yep.
Okay, with a price, some notice period. Okay, that's great. Okay, any other discussion? 28 cents going once, okay. All right, Syed,
Yes.
Ian,
Johnson, yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and Shelby, yes, 400 for being present for 28 cents per kilowatt hour. And all the other things that went along with the motion. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, super. All right. We are moving on to our next agenda item. Thank you, as always, Pete, for enlightening us. No pun intended.
No problem. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are moving on to the presentation by the Affordable Housing Working Group.
Okay. So thank you for having this on the agenda. I want to welcome Ed Bain, a member of the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group. Ed has been indispensable because as this board is aware, we have a community engagement site where we've had phenomenal participation from the community. Close to 600 people have visited the site. More than 50 have subscribed to get our updates that we do periodically, and have come back, and we've got a very high rate of commentary on the site and feedback as well. So in addition to the public comment that is guiding our work as a committee, a lot of Ed's time has been spearheading our effort in data analysis and pulling a wide range of demographic, economic, cultural data, looking at the town of Westborough, where we are, and all of these multiple factors that impact affordable housing. So in your packet, you have a copy of what we see as our final report as far as our analysis and our recommended action items, which, to summarize very briefly, and Ed chime in, is to move forward with the creation of Affordable Housing Trust, as we believe it will be an efficient way to help the town meet its housing affordability goals, as reflected in the strategic plan, as well as offer other benefits to the town. And so what we're going to do, and Ed, you can unmute yourself and join me in the presentation and comment as I go through it. But
okay, thanks, Alan.
But let me pull up our presentation. We'll walk through it very quickly, and we can then entertain any questions. I do encourage everyone to look through the document. There's a great executive summary and introduction, as well as, if you're into the data, there's plenty of data and research behind what we're doing here in our recommendations as we move forward. It's no surprise that we're talking about housing affordability, affordable housing. It's a common concern we hear as public officials and people active in the town. So much so that in the 2018 effort that resulted in our strategic plan, housing affordability and diversity was ranked as the #2 top priority, with some specific recommendations about developing strategies, projects, and funding to ensure adequate, not just affordable housing and housing affordable, and we'll go into the difference, the nuance of those terms. And why is this important? The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, defines housing as affordable when the cost of housing, rent, or mortgage and utilities is 30% or less of the household gross income. And so a household is considered cost burdened if you're above that 30% threshold. If you're above that 50% threshold, you're severely cost burdened. Now, we've looked at neighboring towns, we've looked at our dashboard towns, and Westborough is in the middle. And even so, right now, 16.4% of homeowners are cost burdened or severely cost burdened in Westborough, 42.7% of renters. And so while we're comparable to similar towns that we like to compare ourselves to, we do still have significant percentages of our population that struggle to rent or own their homes. And so municipal affordable housing trusts really are designed to provide both the funding and the means to address housing affordable issues. It is, by definition and by Mass General Law, a real estate trust established to create, maintain, and preserve affordable housing within the community. It's a public entity under the authority of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 55C. So it works as any other government entity as far as procurement, design selection, open meeting laws, conflict of interest. And it can be created by a vote of town meeting with the trustees appointed by the Board of Selectmen. When we look at how affordable housing trusts are run, there are two components. One is the leadership. As mentioned, there's a board of trustees. It can be 5 or more members. One must be a member of the select board, appointed by the Board of Selectmen on 2-year alternating terms. There is no further requirement for oversight by the Board of Selectmen under Mass General Law. However, we are proposing a level of oversight for the Board of Selectmen as part of our trust declaration. Administratively, the funds would be protected, maintained, and managed by the treasurer collector, and the finance director and the finance team would oversee the operations as far as processing purchase orders, warrants, expenditure funds, management of accounts, things of that nature. There is also by law an annual independent audit which can be separate or included as part of the overall annual independent audit of the town's finances. Some trusts do have their own staff. Most trusts will use resources from the town if and when those are available as needed, and the trust is allowed to reimburse the town for the cost of staff or other resources it uses. Trusts can also contract with consultants and other experts on specific projects or specific initiatives. The trust will generally have 4 types of activities, which is really about acquiring, creating, preserving, and supporting affordable housing. By using a mix of these activities, the trust can really address a wide range of housing needs and housing issues. And so when we look at what affordable housing trusts can do, they have the ability to buy, sell, lease, manage, build, and fund housing projects. The trust can also support local initiatives that meet both the subsidized housing needs and workforce housing needs. Additionally, to grants and gifts that the trust can receive, they will receive funding from towns, and it can come from a number of sources, including should we approve the Community Preservation Act, there's an affordable housing component of that legislation that could go into the trust, but inclusionary zoning requirements for projects developed under special permits, mitigation funds, things of that nature can also be channeled by votes of town meeting to the trust. So a lot of people have asked us what housing trust projects look like, and so here's a slide with 5 different projects. There's a home that was purchased at market rate, was rehabbed and resold as affordable, conversion of existing buildings, privately owned, hotel turned into apartments, a police station converted, the acquisition of a rental property and conversion to some of those units to affordable that are then managed by the trust, and even new construction. And so the trust has a lot of flexibility in how it can leverage the money. I will point out that Yarmouth project, the trust partnered with a private nonprofit developer, and the trust spent just over $2 million, but resulted in 69 affordable apartments. So there's the trust can operate in ways that create great efficiency for the funds, much more so than a government entity building housing stock from scratch. We like to benchmark ourselves around surrounding towns and our data dashboard communities. And so when we look at our data dashboard, we see that the majority of them have housing trust. Let me go back to that slide. Sorry about that. Click error. User error there. The majority of our data dashboard towns have municipal affordable housing trusts. A few actually had special legislation created to do comparable service before the Mass General Law was put into effect. Also in that second column, those percentages are as of the last published data I could find from DHCD is as of 2017, the SHI inventory in those towns. So many of these towns created the trust because they were at or below the 10% threshold, and having a trust can help accelerate affordable housing and get you to that SHI threshold we need. We're in a fortunate position with slightly over 13% currently affordable housing, which we know will change with the 2020 census, but at that rate, we're in a better position to put the trust in place, and it gives us more opportunity to plan and act rather than just react to situations that we don't want to be in with respect to affordable housing and 40B development. So why have a Westborough Affordable Housing Trust? We want to create it to achieve the goals outlined in the strategic plan, a broad range of benefits to the community, and now is really the time to act. As this board knows and the public is hopefully aware, we are receiving inclusionary zoning and mitigation funds from active development projects, with some of these funds specifically designated for affordable housing needs. So establishing the trust at this time lets us capture and use those funds as intended and as the town feels is appropriate. And some of the ways that the trust benefits the town, even around economic development and housing stability, tax revenues are outlined on the slide there. So our mission as we've defined it, and you'll see it's reflected in the warrant, is to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing units in Westborough for the benefit of low and moderate income households, and to support efforts to improve housing affordability for our community in general. That mission is slightly broader than the definition of the statute. We're allowed to modify that under the statute, and we felt including the broader affordability issues best reflects our desire to meet a range of needs above and beyond strictly SHI inventory housing. So what does it mean as far as scope of programs? Affordable housing and workforce housing is measured based and compared to the area median income. And so depending on the housing program, Westborough's area median income is ranges between $98,200 to $111,600 per year gross income for a family of 4. And so what we're typically think about with affordable housing and the SHI units that count for our 40B inventory, those programs are generally designed for that a family of 4 to run between families that are earning 30% and 80% of the area median income. So as low as $29,500 a year up to about $89,000 per year for a family of 4. When we talk about workforce housing, those affordable housing programs are generally designed to meet the needs of families that for a family of 4 would run between 60% and as high as 130% of the area median income. And so you see the Housing Trust will be able to address housing issues for a pretty wide demographic of residents and give us flexibility. So where does the money come from? First and foremost, the town through votes at open town meeting will decide on the funding. We have the 4 likely sources of funds for our Westborough Affordable Housing Trust will be the 2 stabilization funds that we created at our 2021 annual town meeting held in June. There's currently an effort to explore the Community Preservation Act, which is Mass General Law, Chapter 44B. Should the town meeting vote to go forward and become a CPA community, then there would be further town meeting votes that could use some of those CPA funds to the trust for the purpose of affordable housing. And the laws around affordable housing trusts align with the rules for using funds from CPA for affordable housing as well. Additionally, the town could decide to make appropriations from free cash or the tax levy. I will say that's an incredibly uncommon thing to do, that most of the money that makes it into affordable housing trusts, the sources we're looking for are the inclusionary zonings, the project mitigation funds that would go through the stabilization funds and would be voted on by town meeting as requested or as needed by the trust. The trust can have other sources of fundings, including gifts, bequests, or grants, either from private citizens or other government entities, and that can be cash, property, real or personal. Trusts can undertake certain operations that generate revenue, which would be a source of revenue for the trust. And at times, some trusts will sell assets to raise cash for other projects. And so the funding sources are there. When we talk about a Westborough Affordable Housing Trust and the oversight, Mass General Law sees affordable housing trusts as independent government entities, but gives us as a town the ability to restrict or expand the trust's powers. It does require, annual law requires an annual report to the Board of Selectmen and the town. So we would have an annual report published in the book that the clerk's office prints each year for annual town meeting, and a third-party independent annual audit. Using our ability to expand or restrict the powers of the trust, we're proposing 3 restrictions that would require a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen. So should the trust undertake any single transaction committing over 50% of the trust assets, that decision would have to go to the Board of Selectmen, a presentation made, a vote of concurrence. Similarly, when the trust's total activities reach an accumulated commitment of assets of 80%, then at that point, every project that's committing assets would have to go before the Board of Selectmen. And any disposition of real or personal property that is over 50% of trust assets. And so this is designed to provide some fiscal oversight beyond what's required by Mass General Law, in a way that would scale with the size and work of the trust. We realize when you're creating a government entity where the law gives you a lot of flexibility, it's good to know and set expectations of what you want. So we, as a working group, have come up with a set of 7 guiding principles that you see on the screen. These are really designed to help us support the town's strategic objectives, give the trust the flexibility it needs to do its job effectively and efficiently, but in a way that is respectful of the town and the expectations of the community. And so clearly, we want to help maintain our subsidized housing inventory with respect to Mass General Law section or Chapter 40B, prioritize housing needs not only on community input, but on analysis of the data and what the data tells us, promote efforts that span the full range. So we're looking at the broadest impact possible, leveraging projects that help the sustainability of the trust. We should always consider and respect the impact of projects on town services, and projects should respect and reflect the architecture and styles of housing in our neighborhoods. So we're not going to put a 5-story building in a single family area. We want to be respectful of our style and the architecture and the feel of the town and the community. And finally, of course, we want to work cooperatively with town boards, committees, and departments, as there are many, many stakeholders when it comes to housing at all, let alone affordable housing. Okay. Based on our data analysis and the feedback we've received so far from the community, the Housing Trust is setting the expectation that the trustees will work on in line with these 4 priorities. Help keep SHI for Westborough above the 40B threshold. Expand affordable housing options for seniors aged 62 plus. Increase the availability of and access to workforce housing, and preserve existing affordable housing units. And so the trust will focus on these priorities as it begins its work, and will continue to use data and community input over time to guide its efforts. So our next steps is, as we're going to talk in a moment about the warrant articles at our November 7th now special fall town meeting, we're looking for the town to vote to create the trust and provide some initial funding, after which the Board of Selectmen would proceed with appointing the trustees. At that point, the trustees will complete the declaration of trust and file it with the Registrar of Deeds for Southern Worcester County, and the trust will be up and active and operational. Please, everyone, board members, community members, go to the community site. We've got a lot of great information. We're asking questions, and we've had feedback that's not only helping guide our work, but is being shared completely and is helping the work of the Master Planning Advisory Committee's group on housing. And so on that, I'll pull down the slides. Happy to answer any questions about the presentation specifically or the document you have in the packet. For folks who are watching the meeting, the document that the Board of Selectmen has in the packet is available both on our committee's webpage on the town website. It's in the blue boxes over on the left-hand side. And it's also in the information and plan section of the community engagement site. So the document's there. We've gotten feedback. We've posted every single, our final document was our 10th draft. Every draft has been posted and available for public comment throughout the process as well. So we appreciate several citizens who took the time to read and provide input and feedback.
Fantastic. Alan, will the presentation you just gave also be on the website?
Yes, we're going to put the presentation on both websites.
Okay.
And actually, probably most of these slides will end up becoming the image scroll on the top of the community engagement site homepage.
Okay, great. Well, amazing, amazing work by the entire committee. I know just by looking at the packet, although I've got to read it again, the actual the action plan, it's incredibly detailed. But what a great starting point for this initiative. So thankful to the many, many hours that have been put into it by so many.
I also want to extend thanks to our town department heads and several of our town departments, because as we've needed data along the way, even with the midst of everything else on their plate, they were helpful and extremely responsive in providing us useful information.
I just want to echo that, particularly both finance director, as we were looking at workforce housing, we were looking at what is the average time to drive from where people live by zip code into Westborough, which helped us get an idea of, how far spread out people are who might want to live in town, but choose other locations that are probably more affordable. The assessor's office was really great. Jonathan helped out by really giving us a dump of all the parcels in town by land use code, which allowed us to understand both the current use, size, number of apartment units that we have in town, as well as the availability of possible developable land, which is not a lot, but that's, all mentioned in the document that Alan has referenced.
And final thanks to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership. It's a nonprofit that has been providing us with technical expertise, access to their data aggregation services, and they provided the funding for the community outreach site.
Fantastic. So we have some additional time on our agenda. We'll sort of blend item number 6 and 7 to ask questions about the presentation, and then sort of that will probably naturally morph into a conversation about the actual 2 articles that are on the warrant if the board has any questions. So I'll open it up to board for questions or comments.
So just an impressive presentation. I just want to go back to just one thing. So is this, the trust is not going to put, are the taxpayers going to be liable if something goes bad with the trust's investment? Will we have to bail out the trust? 2, I just want to be clear that will the trust be run as an enterprise fund so that, again, taxpayer dollars will not be affected? And the third is one of the concerns that the Boston Foundation has more recently raised is that while house prices have skyrocketed, people are actually being forced out of their homes because many of them have been laid off and chances of them getting jobs are getting increasingly scarce. So the question I have is, these were people that could afford, were not, quote unquote, looking for affordable housing, but are now. So how, there's a concern that there may be an epidemic of potential people having to be foreclosed on their homes. How will this address that? So those are my 3 questions.
Okay, so the first question is affordable housing trusts, and the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust will be a separate government entity. So once town meeting votes to transfer funds, whether it's from the stabilization fund or for CPA, to the housing trust, as far as the town is concerned, that money has been allocated and spent. At that point, the trust is operating as an independent entity. The town has, there's actually no mechanism for the town to bail out the trust. There's no requirement for the town to provide additional funding for the trust. And so the trust will live as it's funded, will live on its means, and has to be fiscally responsible to do that. As part of our research, I did have an informal conversation with members of our town council who work with affordable housing trusts, and they indicated that it's almost unheard of that projects may not always go as planned. It's almost unheard of for trusts to run into serious financial issues that threaten their viability.
Okay, so we're bottom line is potentially the town is not on the hook if something potentially goes bad.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then the question about, then the other question I had was about, potentially people that are being affected by the pandemic and, that potentially did not think that they needed affordable housing but may now require it. How does the trust address that, or it's a much more pressing need that, you're thinking more long term. I'm just trying to get a sense of how we can help those people that are facing eviction from their homes.
So trusts have some limited ability to provide assistance. It's typically tied to programs that are really about getting people to move into affordable units for the first time. And so, or to move between affordable units. And so we know there's a short-term issue. We're researching on what the trust may or may not be able to do with that. But we also need to balance is that the real purpose for having the trust is to deal with the midterm and long-term issues and direction of affordable housing and overall housing affordability in the town. And so, we are tracking what other towns have done, typically with block grant money that's been provided because they're considered a distressed community, that they can reallocate from longer-term projects to short-term projects. At this point, it's unclear what our trust would be able to do with some of the short-term crisis. But it's something that the trust would look into and would discuss.
Yeah, if I can chime in for a minute, Syed. This is Ed. One of the things the trust might look at is, let's say, and this is not to be macabre, but if there was a foreclosure due to the inability for somebody to buy, the trust might want to look at a particular property and see whether it could buy it at a lower cost and flip it into as an affordable unit. So it could be a small single-family home that would be perfect for first-time buyers, something along those lines, or a condo or something along those lines. Just to repeat Alan a little bit, the trust purpose is not to be if you will, a charitable type of organization, i.e. to provide subsidies to people on an ongoing basis. We might at times, if somebody needs affordable housing and they may be at a margin where they can't afford, even if it's something as simple as the closing costs, the trust might cover something like that just to get them into the affordable housing.
Right. And those are typically done. Those are typically done in partnership with nonprofits. Right. Right, where the funding for those programs is coming from the nonprofit or from other sources.
Okay, and then the last, and I'm sorry, I think you may have answered this question, but so because this is a separate entity, it will be run as we run our enterprise funds, right? We, the staff or whatever we hire, costs associated with this will be not on the taxpayer, it'll be on the money that trust generates. Yes, am I getting that correct?
It's not an enterprise fund. That's a very specific thing. Because an enterprise fund is a special type of account within the town's budget. It is a separate government entity that has its own budget. And so the trust, well, some towns don't do it. Our intention is that, if the trust needs to use town council, that the trust would reimburse the town for the cost of using town council. If the trust needs time from the planning department for a project, the trust would reimburse the town for that cost of using those resources, so that this would not become a cost burden to the town or the taxpayers.
Okay.
And it would come out of the funding and and whatever operating revenues the trust might generate.
Okay, thank you.
I know. Ian, are you still on?
I think you have to drop off.
You have to drop off. Okay, I know that he said he might have to leave early. Okay. I don't have any questions at this point, I mean, as I already said, I've got to go back into the action plan and couple that with this narrative overview of the presentation. There's no question that Westborough needs this. I think I'm fully supportive of it. And I think that, Alan, as you and I have talked a number of times, I think getting folks to understand, I actually took a screenshot of while you were presenting that picture with the arrows, which sort of identified affordability versus workforce housing. To me, speaks volumes, because it identifies those individuals, those families that we're talking about that could be impacted by this. And so to me, that sort of lifts the veil of what often is confusion on this topic, like who does this benefit? So exceptional job. We're so fortunate to have folks that, like yourselves, that in the entire committee not represented here, that care enough to get us to where we're at. So thank you.
Thank you.
So with respect to, I'm going to kind of switch gears, but stay on the same topic and bring us back to the fall town meeting warrant. And sorry, I'm just scrolling here. So we have two articles. Article 9 establishes the trust.
Correct.
Keep me honest here, Alan, and Article 10 basically allows the money from Del Webb Chauncey to move into that trust.
Correct.
Yep.
I just want to clarify. So the money from Del Webb Chauncey, it's just the first payment that we free cash. And then we still do have that stabilization fund that will capture the payments going forward.
Yeah, sorry, Kirsty. Yes, I thank you for that clarification. So are there any questions? Alan, I can't imagine you have any at this point. Syed, do you have any questions regarding the articles, 9 or 10?
No, not at all.
Okay, and nor do I. Okay, all right. So again, we'll close the warrant next week, so we're not going to require a vote here. Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ed, for joining us.
Thank you, Ed.
My pleasure. Good night.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion vote to amend policy and training requirements for liquor license holders. Christy.
Yep. So the board has a policy on liquor licensing, and it includes the requirement that any training be done in person. Given the pandemic, we've had a request from one restaurant to allow for this training to happen online. The recommendation here would be for the board to either amend the policy going forward, or to amend the policy during the state of emergency, so that as we come up on renewal season, the required training can happen virtually if that's how it's offered.
Great. Okay. Is there a motion?
So before we decide which motion to move forward with, I guess, the question is there any feedback from Christy or Kim or the department heads who are involved in monitoring and enforcement as to a preference to having in-person training versus online or virtual training?
I have not received any feedback. My understanding is that when the board established this policy several years ago, there was a concern about if it's online training, is the person who is being certified actually the person taking the training? I think it's been several years since then, and I think there's a lot of training that happens online. Certainly we would expect that the person being certified is the person taking the training. And so we would want people to be able to move forward, but I have not received any specific feedback.
Okay.
Alan, if I could add, as a member of the Rotary Club, and when we applied for a liquor license to serve beer at a couple different events. It was not an easy process to find the training, schedule the training. At that time, I wasn't personally involved. I didn't go through the training, but it was limited in availability and even in vendors that offer the training. So I think this is an opportunity for Westborough to, ultimately the person that signs their name that they, took the training, they're assuming a whole lot of liability if they didn't take that training and they find themselves, in a heap of worry if they've done something wrong, then, that's on them. So I don't think there's risk to the town. And I know that's not what you were asking, but I think that it's an opportunity for Westborough to sort of vault forward and kind of utilize technology to help businesses, particularly now, but also going forward, and even kind of if community events, we have those in the future. So I'm supportive of offering, amending the policy to be expansive beyond the pandemic.
Okay, I am too. I was just wondering if there was any concerns about doing it beyond the extent of the COVID-19 state of emergency. So I would move to amend the policy on training requirements for liquor license holders and employees as presented.
Do I have a second? I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Oh, sorry, Alan.
No, it's very straightforward.
Okay, great. I'll just say thank you, Christy, for taking this up, just to really help to be responsive to businesses that want to maintain. We stress to them when they get a liquor license how important it is to maintain compliance and to be good partners with the town and our public safety teams. So the reciprocal effort on our part is really important. So thank you and to your team to support that. So roll call vote, Syed.
Yes.
Alan.
Yes.
And Shelby, yes, 3 being present. Great. Okay, moving on to the town manager report, please.
I just
Document. Yep, sorry, Chris.
The board has sent letters on behalf of the community regarding the I-90-495 interchange project. We also heard from the delegation related to that project and how it impacts the proposed trail. And so actually tomorrow morning, representatives from the town are meeting with representatives from MassDOT and our legislative delegation to discuss the project as it relates to that trail development. And so we'll be doing a site walk to view the areas of concern raised by the town and to discuss the response from MassDOT. So there are several members of town staff, as well as 2 members of the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee that will be meeting with them tomorrow. The Belknap Street property, the purchase and sale agreement has been fully executed by the board and the seller. So the closing date is expected to occur closer to the end of the calendar year. Related to traffic enforcement, we've received some concerns about different traffic issues. The police department asked me to remind everyone that the traffic concerns of any kind should be reported to the police department using the STEP online submission system, and the traffic officer will address them. And so within my town manager report is the website for that. So when this is posted online, people will be able to click, but that's also available just by going to the police department website. One thing that's not included in my town manager report that I did want to bring up with the board, and I'm just going to quickly show it right now, is there's been a lot of discussion about Halloween. And I just want to sort of remind the community that the town, the selectmen, the recreation department, we do not schedule Halloween. We don't have rules about Halloween, but we do want to remind everyone that the CDC has put out recommendations on Halloween and how you could safely participate. And also that's also available through the MassDOT website. And so we will be putting up this flyer just to remind people, as we've done with other things, what the state and federal guidance is related to COVID. But then on the right side of the flyer, Westborough has provided some alternative socially distanced or virtual Halloween events that we would encourage people to participate in, and so that they can celebrate the holidays safely. So we will be putting this out.
I love the virtual 5K and the ability to eat all the candy. I guess I should be honest and say that I ran it so that I could justify eating the candy. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and the community's experienced this, but the ability of, of everyone, but of our departments, in particular, recreation and the library, to be creative during all of this has just been really great to watch. So, and I guess that's all I have for my report. I don't have any department updates because this is not a regular Selectmen's meeting, but I will have some next week.
I'm sure you will. All right. Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much, Christy. Appreciate it. So we'll move into issues and correspondence of the Selectmen. Again, even though not a regular meeting, we'll allow for time because we're all busy and active and what's going on out there. Alan.
Okay, so I was going to, obviously, as everyone knows, I've been doing affordable housing updates, but you've seen the big update already, so no need to reiterate. Just another thank you for everyone who's participating and providing feedback. I will actually at next meeting bring some follow-up activity from the Economic Development Committee, particularly, and Kim and John, our assessor, have done incredible work in preparing the town to submit an application for a grant program that's designed to help fill empty storefronts. And so it's a matching program. So the EDC is updating its grant program so that it aligns with the state program, and we can use the EDC funds from the billboard revenue to help be the matching grant component for that state program with a focus on filling those empty storefronts. And while a number of businesses have closed temporarily or permanently in town, we are seeing signs of new economic development as there appear to be efforts for particularly some new restaurants to move into downtown along West Main and South Street. So as this information gets processed, we'll share that good news.
Excellent. Thank you. Syed?
I have nothing.
Okay. Ian, welcome back. You had to step away. Do you have anything for issues and correspondence?
Just real quick, the only thing I want to talk about is continue to work with Christy and Kim and Jen and the Country Club Operating Committee on these. We all know they've been in front of us as we prepare for town meeting. We do have further meetings. We're just finalizing the budget information and really working through the process as we move forward with the new head of golf position that we've put out for advertisement. So more to come there, but the group is working extremely hard to get those numbers finalized and ready for us for the warrant that we'll see next week. So we will be meeting later this week and hopefully lock that down. That's all I had.
Thanks for all your work on that. I know that's a big transition. Okay, just two quick updates on my end. Actually, three. I'm sorry. First, I want to thank the town for some recent announcements it's made regarding the closure of Church Street. So DPW put out a post that was on Facebook, and it quickly got circulated. So it was and I saw it on a number of Facebook pages. So as well as our town website. It's great to have announcements on the town website, but that requires people to know to go there. So when it's on Facebook, it's a little bit more of a push technology, and word gets around very quickly, and then people understand, hey, I'm going to have to kind of detour around, or if I live or work on that street, I've got to make some special provisions and anticipate that. So I know we talk a lot about communication. It's Ian's favorite topic because he wants a chief information officer, but it's the little things that really do make a difference in people's lives when they can anticipate and plan. And so I want to thank the town for paying attention to the small details, particularly Chris Paint and his department. Just want to give an update. As you know, as chairman of this board, I am a member of the trustees of Soldiers Memorials. So really excited to have a full committee participating. Now we had a meeting last night, sort of almost under the stars at Bay State Commons as an open air meeting. It was a beautiful night. And it's nice to see that outdoor area getting utilized by so many. There were Girl Scouts having meetings and kids running around socially distanced. So it was nice out there. But at any rate, we did meet, and the work of that committee continues with a focus on making sure that the memorials we have around town are maintained, particularly around making sure they're ready for Veterans and Memorial Day. But most important that I want to bring to the board's attention is that we had another presentation of the Blue Star Memorial last night and its location. So Ms. Little, who brought that forward to this board, attended that meeting. We have a new proposed location that is being presented to the Veterans Advisory Board at the October 13th meeting. If we get support for that, then we'll bring it back to the board just to share that consensus, really as an update. And the new proposed location is to the left of Forbes, where there used to be like a pine tree. It's right on the corner of Parkman, but it's to the left of the all the memorials that are there. So I have a picture of it I can share with the board, but that is the location, and the trustees were very supportive of that location. So that was great. So the other thing I'll just add is that I've been working with the VIA and WRTA teams to help with marketing around town. So reaching out to residential locations, clusters, as well as businesses to just really make introductions for them. Alan helped me with connecting me with the Westborough Housing Authority to make sure they're getting flyers, we're getting translated materials, and working with the town team as well. That business is that work continues and is really, really important to so many. So it's been a fun project. And that's all I have. So with that, I will take a motion to enter into executive session.
Okay. I move under Mass General Law that we adjourn to executive session for the purpose of purchase, sale, lease, or value of real estate.
Johnson, second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Syed?
Yes.
Ian?
Johnson, yes.
Alan?
Yes.
And Shelby, yes, 4004 being present. And so we will say goodnight to everyone. Thank you, Westborough TV. Sorry for bringing us live, and for everyone for watching. Have a good night. Be safe.